Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elaine Fagan, and I want to welcome you to today's women-focused webinar, Your Relationship with Risk. It's fantastic that we have women from IA and B, the Big I of Minnesota, and the Big I of Nebraska joining us for this informative presentation. And good news, today's webinar will absolutely focus on your relationship with risk and not your customer's relationship with risk. That's a nice change of pace, isn't it? Before introducing today's speaker, I do want to cover a few housekeeping details. First, because of the large audience, all audio lines are muted and cameras are off. Second, if you have questions during the webinar, send them via the chat feature. The chat will be monitored and questions will be addressed as they are submitted. Third, there will be times during the presentation that Meg, our presenter, will be looking for attendee interaction. When this happens, if you feel inclined to participate, use the raise your hand feature, and the webinar administrator will unmute your audio, and your camera, though, will remain turned off. And the fourth and final item to share is the webinar will be recorded for you to access after the presentation via your association's website. So now, back to what I consider the exciting stuff about today's webinar. I'm thrilled to be introducing Meg McKeen to all of you, although some of you may already be familiar with her through her podcast, Bound and Determined. IA and B connected with Meg via a combination of referrals from members who are big fans of her, along with glowing recommendations from organizations that worked with her in the past. And after connecting with Meg, we knew that bringing her expertise to all of you would be a great fit with our women's initiative. Meg's career has always been in the insurance industry, first as an underwriter and agent, and now as the founder and principal consultant for Adjunct Advisors, a personal and professional development organization focused on helping individuals, agencies, and companies grow their sales and leadership acumen. Meg is not only well suited for today's assignment, but we've lined her up to be our keynote speaker at IAMB's upcoming women's conference in March. For those of you registered for the sold out event, I'm glad you signed up early, and we are very happy to offer you today a sneak peek of Meg's commitment to encouraging and inspiring women in our industry. So as they say, without further ado, welcome Meg.
Elaine, thank you so much. What a wonderful, and I'm going to say warm tongue-in-cheek welcome. I know a lot of us are dealing with uncomfortable cold right now. I feel like we could get started in the chat just trying to play the who's got it worse game right now weather-wise. But I'm sitting today right now in sunny North Carolina. It's 43 degrees here, which is unseasonably cold for the folks here. But we're going to have a nice warm hour together, and I appreciate that warm welcome.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you.
you're so welcome. And you're in charge now. I'm going off screen.
All
Woohoo!
right, let's
And
do
I'm
it.
muting. All
Perfect.
right, thanks.
Oh, I love it. It's so good to be here, and I'm so excited for this time that we're going to have together in advance. If you are joining us coming up next month, I'd love for you to chime in from the chat and let me know if I can expect to see you there. It's fun to see you here, and if you missed out, spoiler alert, make sure you get ahead of the game next year so that you don't get shut out. Kristen, thanks for chiming in the chat. Barb, great. Can't wait to meet you. I hope that y'all will pop up and say hi when we get there next month. But today we're here to talk about your relationship with risk. And this is a topic that I particularly love talking about with women in the insurance industry because many of us spend our day absolutely buried in the depths of risk and risk management, but our own personal relationship with risk might be slightly different. And I would love for you to hop in the chat. This is going to be interactive, and I hope that you're up for that because I don't want to do this alone. So thanks for coming along with me for the ride. But on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 was I take no risks, I live in my protective layer of bubble wrap in my comfy couch at home, versus 10 is give me all the risks, all the planes to jump out of, all the zip lines to go down. Where do you fit on that risk spectrum? How would you consider yourself as a risk taker? Ooh, we've got some sixes, fives, threes, twos. Used to be 10, now five. Oh, Cindy, I hope you'll pop in later and share more about that. Threes and fives. We've got a really good range. And I knew that we would. We always do, because the reality is we all have a uniquely different relationship with risk. And the first thing that I want to remind us is that everybody here has a story. You're going to hear a lot about mine. It's the nature of a conversation like this, but I really want you to honor where you are on your own journey, where you've been. Maybe risk taking for you as a young woman wasn't safe. Maybe you didn't have risk taking modeled for you, like me, when you were a younger woman. And so maybe you've taken some risks and they haven't really gone very well. So your enthusiasm for taking risks maybe has waned over the years. But there's a lot of reasons for why we have the relationship with risk that we have. And I really want to honor yours. We will have some opportunity to share. Anybody who's listened to the podcast or heard me speak before knows that I love a good story and I love hearing from you all. I can speak for the next hour, but I feel honestly like it's a little disrespectful to talk about a topic like this and come on here and tell you if you follow these 5 steps or follow these 10 steps, you can be a better risk taker. That's just baloney. I would never say that to you. And I respect you too much to judge how you have lived your life and to try to influence the ways that you might live your life going forward. So just remember that I respect your boundaries. I would love for you to share when it's appropriate to, and also understand if that's not where you're at today. Sometimes what we need in these moments is to sit back and really observe and to take it in. And with that, I would encourage you to think about why you showed up today. This isn't one of those webinars where you get CE. So you're here hopefully by choice. And when you're here, I hope that you're here. I hope that you're able to turn your phone off and silence all the noise around you. Shut your door if you're in your office. Give the kiddos something to do if they're home today, and really focus on yourself for this next little bit. I am not a mental health professional. I always have to add this disclaimer. I wish I was, candidly. My career went in a very different direction, but I have found the best way to leverage my love for and belief in the people who are here in doing the work that I do now. But there might be things that come up for you that might be uncomfortable, and I totally respect if you need to just observe or even check out while we're here, because a lot of the things that we talk about when we talk about risk are uncomfortable. They do bring up things for us. So just know that this time is really for you. So I love all these numbers in the chat. It's such a great reminder that we're all at different points on our journey. I want to get us started thinking about risk. Risk is this heavy, loaded term. It's usually got a kind of negative approach or a negative feeling to it in many cases. And that might be my own bias, maybe not for you. But I want to start with a little game, if you will, of this or that, either or, would you rather? And please join me in the chat. If you have an instant reaction to one of these either ors, I'd love for you to share. But we're going to dig into each one as well. And we're going to really understand what is the risk here. There's a behavior or there's an action or a choice that we're going to uncover. But I really want to get to what is the root here that makes us think about risk one way or the other. So let's dig in. The first one, roller coaster or roller skating? Natalie says roller coaster, roller coaster, roller skating, roller skating, roller coaster. I love it. Mixed bag. Neither. I love it. Neither would be my choice too. Roller coaster, we might have a fear of heights. We might, like me at 47 almost, that feeling in the pit of my stomach when you're at the very top and you're ready to do the drop doesn't feel good to me anymore. It doesn't do good things for my neuro systems, if you will. Roller skating freaks me out because I'm a one-woman show. I'm self-employed. If I fall and break my arm, I'm done for. I don't know what I would do. And so in my case, neither of them sound really exciting. But if I had to choose, I probably would choose roller skating, to be honest. I love it. We're talking about vertigo. If I was still in my 20s, I'm seeing a trend here that our risk-taking tolerance changes as we get older. And I think we want to make the distinction, and we're going to do that right now, the difference between a physical risk and an emotional risk or a behavioral risk. And I definitely was much more inclined to take physical risks when I was a younger woman, and now I'm a little more inclined to take emotional risks. And maybe that's part of aging, but we'll dig into that here. Would you rather cook with a recipe, or would you rather wing it? Wing it, wing it, wing it recipe. Yeah. I learned to cook from my mom. She's a recipe follower. I think she breaks out into hives when she's missing an ingredient or pours the wrong amount of a spice into something, if she even uses the spice at all. And I love my mom very much, but it's only been in the last several years that I've become more confident in understanding that there's very little you can do to screw things up. Now, leaving an ingredient out of a cake, different story. But when I'm making a mess of vegetables and some sort of protein and a grain for dinner, it's kind of hard to get it wrong. But I love it. And we're talking, Jennifer, you're talking about adapting the recipe, winging it. This is great. Thanks all for playing along. I never know. I never know when I create experiences like this. And by the way, this workshop was developed during the pandemic when we all had a very different relationship with risk. And so we're able to kind of talk and adapt in present time, but it is something that not everybody is comfortable with. So thanks for going for it. Let's do our next one here. Would you rather go skydiving or would you rather get a tattoo? Beth wants to do both. Natalie is skydiving. Tattooing, neither. 1,000%. Yeah, I'm a neither too. I thought for a minute I might get a tattoo, but there's a permanence about it. And not that I can't make a decision and stick with it, but I just struggled to think about what is something that would be so meaningful to me that I would want to have it emblazoned on my body. Jamie's getting a tattoo after skydiving as a memory. I love it. There's an interesting thing about this that's come up for me. A lot of my girlfriends in this season of life are getting group tattoos. So they're going on a real, like a girls' trip, and they're getting the sunshine or a musical note or something to commemorate the trip. And there's this interesting piece of risk taking, which is FOMO, the fear of missing out, right? That if you decide you don't want to get a tattoo and then everybody else gets a tattoo, are you going to come back from that trip with a little bit of regret that you didn't take that risk? So Carol chimed in, I just got my eyebrows tattooed and it really lifted my self-esteem. I would love to know more about that. I confess I was an over plucker in the 90s, and so I fill mine in. So I think a tattoo sounds like a little time saver for me. I love it. Katrina's mom, her mom and sister are all getting a group tattoo after a girls' trip, just like I was talking about. Probably would be hard to sit that one out. I'm thinking if I was involved in an adventure like that. Let's move on to the next one. Would you rather give a eulogy or would you rather give a keynote? Keynote. Natalie says keynote. Eulogy. This one's tricky to me. And the reason that this one's tricky and what I think it brings up is the vulnerability of it. A keynote you might deliver to 200 people that you don't know about a topic that you're really expert in. And that might feel safe and like a risk you might want to take. A eulogy, you might show some emotion. And you likely would be surrounded by people who know you and know you well. And maybe that vulnerability isn't something, yeah, Jamie can't make it through a eulogy without crying. Maybe that's not something that you're up for either, says Melissa. I totally get it. And this is another thing. If you would have asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said a eulogy because I had to. And I would have said absolutely not to a keynote. And now I have a business doing largely public speaking. So go figure. Our relationship with risk is something that can change over time, but doesn't happen all at once. That's for sure. Last one. Would you rather be the first one to leave social media or would you rather be the last? This is like y'all are getting an expression of my real life right now. But I am struggling with my relationship with social media right now for a lot of reasons and daydream about not being there anymore. But also that FOMO is real. That JOMO, joy of missing out, and that FOMO is it's tricky right now. So thanks for the validation. Getting some first and last ones, just acknowledging that it's hard and that really, when we think about risk taking For some things, sure, there's a quick, easy answer, but for others, it's not black and white. We live life very much in the gray area, and I really want to honor that journey point that we're all on is different, um, and comes from a very different place. I know it's a hard one. Question mark. Yeah, tricky. There's a reason. At this point, I'm going to encourage you to close your eyes. I have some other questions. These are much more personal. They're going to make you maybe feel some things, and that's intentional. And the reason I want you to close your eyes is to really limit the inputs right now in your senses and really think about these things. The first one is, would you rather miss a client deadline or be late to pick your kiddo up from school if you have a kiddo? I don't, but I know a lot of the women working in our industry are moms. So would you rather miss a client deadline or be late to pick up your kiddo from school? Either way, you're disappointing somebody, right? It's just a matter of who and to what extent. Would you rather eat alone in a restaurant, so go out to dinner by yourself, or would you rather eat while your partner is scrolling on their phone? I've mastered the art of dining alone, but I know what it feels like to be sitting in conversation with someone who's not really there, and that brings up a whole different feeling. Thanks for the chiming in. Eating alone. Eating alone is a thing. Eating, it's a thing. It is totally a thing. Okay, here's one. Would you rather ask for help with an item on a tall shelf? This is for the 5'4" gals and under like me. Or would you rather ask for help cleaning up the mess after you or the item that you're reaching for falls and breaks? So would you rather ask for help up front or would you rather ask for help after the fact? Up front, up front, up front. Asking for help is a tricky one. Said differently, would you rather ask for a raise up front or after the fact? After you get your thanks for sticking around bonus. Um, would you rather have those conversations proactively? They're hard. Asking for help is hard, Jamie. I hear you. Yeah, permission or forgiveness, right? It's totally a thing. Okay, second to last one. Would you rather quit your job without a job? This might be sensitive for some of us. Quit your job without a job or be let go. So have a little bit of choice and control, or to be maybe in a little less of the driver's seat. Driver's seat. Quit on your own terms. Quit on your own terms. Quit your job without a job. It's something I have done, but it is something that no one in my life has recommended that I do. Isn't that interesting? It's turned out okay, but I think there's a lot of us that are sitting tight. There's a lot of fear that goes into a lot of the things that we're talking about. If I was let go, I disappointed someone. Yeah. Let go, Jennifer. I love this. So they have to pay benefits, right? Let's be thoughtful about this. Danielle has done this and it's worked out. Yep. Yep. It's a journey, that's for sure. Okay, last one, and I'm really going to leave you with a humdinger here. There's my Midwestern coming out, by the way. Would you rather make a lot of money and be moderately happy or be very happy and be moderately wealthy? So that's the happiness and the money exchange here. Very happy. Yeah, I love it. I love it. The question becomes, are we making decisions? Are we taking risks that are prioritizing that happiness that we're looking for? And it doesn't mean that making money isn't important. Good grief, we certainly need to do that. But Maureen, oh my gosh, Maureen, hi, very happy, less stressed at work. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that deeply. All right, if you're still with me, maybe you've nodded off there. Amy left a toxic job for one that paid less. I feel that. I feel that deeply. Come back to me. Open your eyes if you're still with me, or if you haven't already. And let's keep moving. I want to share a little bit about my journey. We have a saying in the coaching world that coaches go first, which means we won't ask you to do anything that we haven't yet done ourselves. And this might feel a little bit different than a lot of maybe presentations that you've seen in the past. It is deeply personal, just like our relationship with risk. And I'm going to talk about myself. And I know as a public speaker, that's like rule number one is we're not supposed to do that. But I think you're going to see some things that come out in the telling of my story and my journey that really resonate with you. And there's going to be things that don't resonate with you. And I love that too, because it's really that litmus test. It's that meeting point where we get to say, I disagree with you, and that is not my experience. And sometimes that's that little gut check that we need. So, starting with that picture up on the top left, little kindergarten Meg, who was actually a redhead when she was a little girl. That little girl was scared to death of everything. She was afraid of being left in the back seat of the car when her mom would go into the gas station to pay. This was before you could pay at the pump. This was in the 80s, the very early 80s, and spent lots of nights sleeping in her little Care Bears sleeping bag curled up on the floor next to her parents because I had a lot of fear, and a lot of the fear was around being left, being abandoned, if you will. The next picture, high school senior picture, Meg. My mouth is in that kind of weird smile because I still had my braces. I was a senior in high school and still had my braces, and I've had a lot of embarrassment around that. A couple weeks before this picture was taken, I had asked the boy that I had a crush on to go to the senior prom with me. And he said no. I'm still not over it. We're Facebook friends, and I think I turned out fine. No judgment, but that hurt. And I spent a lot of my teen years really looking for validation and acceptance, wanting to be included in the cool girl friend group and being invited to the parties. And that rejection, it really stung. And the reason I'm sharing all this with you is because our choice to make decisions that are risky or not is rooted in all of this experience. The next picture, college Meg. That's right before my insurance career began, and my insurance career began with a broken heart. Some of you have heard this story. I was in a situationship, if you will, I think we would call it now, with a boy that I really liked, and I had made all my future plans based on staying in Chicago, where we both were. And the day before graduation, he let me know that he was not on the same page and that the feelings that I was having were not reciprocated. And I spent my college years and the years following really looking for and searching for love and that feeling of connection. I did end up getting married. 8 years later, I got divorced. And that picture in the bottom row, that first one is my last corporate headshot before I quit my job without a job and started doing what I'm doing now. And that was 7 years ago. And the picture after that is the most recent one. It's my not so professional headshot selfie, but represents a lot of the change that I've experienced. And one of the most dramatic is embracing my gray hair, which I did about 5 years ago. Kate, thank you. Kate commented, "You look the happiest now by far." True story. I see that little girl at 5 with that timid, really scared look, and I still have fear. I still have things that keep me up at night. Also, welcome to menopause. The 3 a.m. wake up call every morning I could really do without, but there is a lot of knowing and there's a lot of growth that's come from the time that that first little picture was taken to today. And the reason I leave that last picture frame open is because I don't know what's coming. I've got some things cooking very practically that could or could not materialize, but I've also got some life ahead of me to live, and I've got some risks yet to take that, or not, frankly, that I don't even know quite yet what might look like for me. So, thanks for letting me share a little bit. I want you to think about what it might be for you. I talked about my fear around being left alone, my fear around being rejected, a need to be accepted. And then I talked about love and my desire for love and some of the career misalignment that I felt really stuck in my career. I had been doing a lot of different things in the industry for almost 17 or 18 years at that point, and moved around from a lot of different carriers over to the agency side and really struggled to find my place in a place that I felt like I really fit. So I appreciate you thinking, just taking a moment. What comes up for you when you think about taking risks? Oh my goodness, I love it. Y'all are using the Q&A first, which is great. Feel free if you've not set your chat to talk to everyone instead of just the panelists and hosts. That's a good reminder too. Y'all are the best with this hair, right? Who knew? I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but I love my hair too. Angela's talking about fear of not being able to retire. Kate, opening your own agency. This is a point. Feel free to use that raise hand feature. Kate, if you're willing, Angela, if you're open and you'd like to hop on the line, we don't have video today, but we do have audio. And if anybody's feeling like they want to pop in and share a little bit about what's going on for them, you're more than welcome to do that. We can unmute you. Um, will I regret doing this in 1 year? Will I regret not doing this? Danielle, it's like you've heard this presentation before because we're going to talk about regret, regret from the risks we take, and we're going to talk about the regret that we might feel if we don't. And the fear of regret is, it is real, that's for sure. So we'll move on. I mentioned I'm going to tell some stories from my own experience, and I've got kind of a light, medium, heavy, if you will, and super curious if there's a topic that I share with you now that you really want me to dig into. And this will be something I'll refer back to when I'm using some examples from my own experience. But the light might be my decision 5 years ago to ditch the hair dye and embrace my natural silver. The medium I would call the decision I made 4 years ago, actually 4 years ago this month, to sell my condo in Chicago and start traveling full time. So I live as a digital nomad. I mentioned right when we got started that I'm in North Carolina and I'll be here until the end of April and then I'm moving on. And the last one is my decision to leave the corporate world and go out on my own and start consulting. And each of those very different risks, different consequences, a different decision process, but also some similarities. And really, the similarity being when you make a choice to show up different in your life, there are all sorts of feelings that you're going to have, but there's all sorts of experiences that those around you are going to have too when you start to change. Angela, I see you, Silver Sister. I'm in the process of letting my gray grow out too. Jamie changed jobs to insurance in November. Ooh, you're buying a business, a quick service restaurant in April. Big risks. Yeah, and like let's honor for a second. Something happens to our nervous system when we take risks. We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but it's a lot. And sometimes it's too much and it's too much all at once. And I realized very quickly when I was in the season of, let's say, starting my full time travel, that that was not a time for me to take some new chances in my business. Starting my business meant slowing down in some of the other areas of my life where I might have been more, I really appreciated things that were status quo in that moment. So, gray hair, travel, and a big job career change for me were some pretty big risks that I can count over the years. The truth is that a lot of us are sitting on something and maybe we're not yet ready to actually take action towards that risk. But the truth is that all sorts of things get in the way. And sometimes they get in the way to the point that we don't actually take action ever. And sometimes they just slow us down. And I want to talk through some of the things that I experienced, but also really come up when a woman reaches out to me and she's in the middle of some sort of a transition. And I love Elaine when she introduced me talking about the work I do is professional development, right? I work in the insurance industry and all my clients that identify most of them are women in the industry, but we're humans. We're having human experience and we're making choices in our personal lives that absolutely are influencing how we're showing up at work and good, bad, or otherwise. That blend is happening around us as much as some days we would like to check all that heavy stuff at the door and just show up and get our work done. But let's dig in a little bit to the who, the where, the how, and the what that gets in the way. Before I want to acknowledge Melissa sold her agency and started working for a new agency. So you went from being the big cheese to being an individual contributor, which is a big transition too. So I love that. Couple main themes: life, opinions, and you. So the things that get in the way. Let's be honest. Life is gonna life. We have to make money. If the thing that maybe you're sitting on or a risk that you're considering taking would mean a financial hit for you, you may still have a mortgage to pay. You may still have mouths to feed. Or you may have obligations to other people. Maybe you've got kiddos at home. Maybe you're the breadwinner. Maybe you're like many, many women who are like me in that elder millennial, younger Gen X and beyond who are caregiving. Maybe you're starting to think about those in your life, family members or dear friends who might be relying on you to be there and to consistently be there and to be able to provide. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be back in May with my new friend Lisa, and we're going to have a whole webinar built out for a discussion on caregiving. So pencil that date in coming up in May. We'll talk about that at the very end. But life is going to life, and we have to be mindful of the commitments that we have to other people. And if your dream is to sell all your possessions and go live on the beach somewhere, well, somebody might need you to make dinner back at home. And so maybe now is not the time, or maybe never is the time. And there's a different way for you to put that dream or that vision or that risk into your life. The next thing is opinions. Um, a woman I deeply admire, a mentor of mine, once said to me, and it was a little hard to hear, but she said, "You know, Meg, out of anybody I know, you care more what other people think than anybody." And it wasn't, she didn't say she liked my hair. Basically, she said, I care too much what other people think. And I don't want to be that person. Jennifer, thanks for the validation. I don't want to care what other people think. I want to barrel through life like a bull in a china shop, doing whatever I want, begging for forgiveness, not asking for permission. And the truth is, the people pleaser in me is deep. And I have done a lot of work to heal it, but it is deep. And so thinking about taking a risk, like let's talk about my decision to ditch the dye and go gray. I did all sorts of research. I did all sorts of what's the best method? How long is it going to take? I went on Instagram and started following a bunch of gray hair influencers. And I was scared to death that I would never date again. I got divorced when I was 30. I started coloring my hair when I was 21. I was so afraid that I was going to be unattractive and frankly unlovable going back to that original high school Meg and college Meg wound that I was nurturing. And I was afraid that people weren't going to hire me. I'm in the public eye. If you hire me to stand on your stage and talk to your crowd, and I've got roots that look like they need to be done, and I've just let myself go, what's that say about my professionalism? At the time I was 41, what does it say if a woman at 41 has gray hair? Is it going to age me prematurely? Am I going to write my ageism sentence ahead of schedule, if you will? It really made me confront a lot of the opinions that other people had, or at least that I thought that they had. They certainly didn't materialize to the extent that I had let myself worry that they might. But other people's opinions is real. If you're thinking about starting a new business, just this morning, a woman reached out to me and she said, I need to take control of my career. I need more work-life balance. I need to be able to travel. I need to have, I cannot do a 9 to 5 for another day. And is thinking about buying a business, buying an existing business, and it would be a huge cash outlay. And there are likely people in her life that would say, that's a terrible idea. You don't want to dump all your life savings into a business. I'm not in the advice giving field, but she's got some decisions to make. And she may have to eventually go against the grain and go against maybe some of those strong opinions that others have around her. Um, and you and yourself. And this is really sensitive. You are not getting in your way. All of the experiences that you've had and all of the hurts that you have felt, and maybe the little mini successes, but that you don't feel are big enough to be that evidence that you're looking for, that moving forward and taking this risk is the right choice for you. It's real. Some of the things that come up over and over again is just fear. A lot of us live at a very baseline level of fear and anxiety. I know that I do. And so I am not a glass half full person. I am absolutely the doom and gloom. And I work really hard to be a little ray of sunshine when I can. But the truth is, catastrophizing is my go to. If you ask me to jump out of a plane, the plane is crashing. If you ask me to get a tattoo, it's going to have a typo. If you ask me to cook without a recipe, I'm going to use sugar instead of salt, and my guests are not going to be able to eat it. That's where my brain goes every single time. I love this. Thanks for the validation again, Danielle. It's that catastrophizing. That's a symptom of my anxiety. I know that now. But what about imposter syndrome? It's something that we hear a lot about, kind of high level. Well, what does imposter syndrome look like when we're thinking about taking risks? How does that manifest? Maybe it's a belief that you don't have enough education, or maybe you don't have enough experience, or maybe you think everybody else has it figured out and you don't. Maybe you're doing that doom scroll on social media and your dream is to quit your 9 to 5 in insurance and start consulting like I did. And what you're seeing is my highlight reel where you see me looking like I have it all together when I know full well I don't. I'm trying to figure it out just like you are and just like everybody else is. Maybe it's that regret that we talked about. Maybe you've had some choices, some chances, some risks that you've taken in the past. They didn't go so well. And so maybe that risk of failure is the thing that's keeping you in one spot. It's not nothing. These things are, we come by this honestly, and it's a journey. Thanks again. I'm not good enough, strong enough. Yeah, literally strong enough about a month ago. One of the things I do when I travel, I'm here in North Carolina for about 3 months, and I'll get to the why here in a little bit. But I need routine. So I have very little routine in my life, but I need some sort of a workout. I need a grocery store, preferably a Trader Joe's, and uh, some sort of sense of community. And so I decided this go around I was going to try bar. Bar workouts are kind of rooted in ballet. I have zero coordination. Don't ask me to pat my belly and scratch my head. It's not happening. Or however, rub and pat. You know how that goes. Um, and it is like the most humbling thing. And part of it's that a lot of the women are really young, but also I'm trying something new and putting myself out there and realizing I have limits. My body has changed. It's changing every day. It's unfamiliar in many ways, but wondering at times, is it ever going to click? Is it ever going to click? And learning maybe it's not meant to. That going and showing up and flailing around, trying to figure out is maybe the end game for me. That may be as good as it gets. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. You did bar align and terrified. Right. And now every muscles in my body I didn't know I had hurt. And I know that that's good. And I also know that I don't always love a workout analogy. I'm not going to lie. A lot of us are not in a position in our lives to be able to make an investment in ourselves, either financially or the time, frankly. Maybe that's we are hanging on for dear life. We're in the back seat of the struggle bus, and all we can do is the bare minimum any day. And I totally, totally respect that. And I certainly have had seasons, and I'm in one right now where because I'm not sleeping well and because my body is changing so much and so rapidly, that sometimes just getting by is the best that we can do. What else comes up for you? I'd love for you to keep chiming in the chat. You're doing great. What comes up for you when you think about taking risks? What gets in the way? Maybe there's some logistical stuff. Like I want to start a side hustle, but I don't know how I would find the time. I don't have the money, or I need health insurance. Health insurance is the thing that comes up over and over again when people talk about making significant job changes. Anxiety, time. Yeah, Katrina. Fear, the what ifs. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I've always really struggled with is the what if it works out. I always think about the what if it fails. I'm really good at that. Got a lot of practice with that one. But letting myself daydream about the what if it works out, that's a little bit harder for me. Yeah, Danielle's working with a shared custody, coordinating, taking care of myself around that scheduling. Yeah, that's not nothing. Fear about what others will think. Other people's opinions are, um, they're present. We all have a different reaction, right? Some of us have that inner rebel that we do what we do, and again, we don't ask for forgiveness. We just go full steam ahead. And if that's not your experience, that's okay. If it is your experience, that's great. Come lock arms with one of us and drag us along, kicking and screaming. Fear of rejection or failure. Yeah. The rejection thing is real. And rejection, I think about this in the context of dating in midlife. I'm in a relationship now of about a year and a half, but that period after my divorce and meeting my now partner was fascinating. And there was some rejection of me, and then there was my rejection of others, which was fascinating too to really explore. Sherry, I think I'm saying that right, is an agency manager and producer trying to stay relevant and understanding of my younger coworkers. Thank you for bringing this up. As we age, it's a different experience for women. I can't say what the experience is like for men. I don't see the world through that lens, but becoming irrelevant is very much a thing that I think many of us consider as the world continues to innovate and change so rapidly, and the next generation enters the workforce, and frankly many of you, again, not my story but maybe yours, you're raising them. You're raising the next generation of folks who are going to come and join us in the industry or out there in the wider world and start to build their own influence. And what does that mean? What does that mean for us? And the truth is, there are days when hunkering down under a blanket on the couch feels right. And then there's days when I want to be screaming at the top of my lungs because I've got things to say. And it changes sometimes daily. Theory, yep, accepting that progress isn't linear and failing is learning. Yeah. And I run the risk sometimes of sounding like an Instagram quote that's like, just put your head down, better days are coming. And I don't always love that because it doesn't really honor where we are in the moment. And if anybody knows me, I am squarely here, as Brene Brown would say, in the messy middle. And there's a lot of good stuff that's happening when we're in these periods of transition. We're gonna move along here. And I want to share with you, I was catching up on anybody listen to Mel Robbins? I mean, highly likely you do. She's got like the number one podcast in the world right now. But I don't always listen, but happened to fall on or come upon an episode that she did a while back with Martha Beck. And Martha shared this quote that stuckness always means that you're about to be transformed. And I love that we've identified, we're talking about what gets in the way. What are these big feelings and what are these doubts that we're having about a risk that we might be thinking about? Yeah, I love her too. Thanks for joining the Mel Robbins fan club train over here. But we don't have to stay in that position of stuckness. And again, sometimes the things that are in our way are always going to be in our way. And I may have wanted to be a professional basketball player, but at 47 and 5'4" with zero coordination, that's not going to happen. And so all the time and all the money and all the resources that I can put forward aren't going to get me there. And I think there's really something about acknowledging what is possible for us and then maybe what is possible for us in a different lifetime or on a different plane, I think is really important too. And also, when can we be supportive and encouraging of other people who are on their risk taking journeys? I think is really key too. Maybe it's not the right risk for you, but maybe you can help clear the path for somebody else who's on their own journey. So let's dig into it from here, where we are right now, in this in between place, to there. And there is, we're going to take this risk. We're going to figure out what's it going to take for us to do this. And I want you to keep thinking about the thing that it is for you. It's not gray hair. It's not traveling full time. It's not starting a business. Maybe, but it's likely something else that's coming up for you. And maybe it's nothing. And maybe life right now looks really rosy through your lens. And I say this in a non-passive aggressive way. I love that for you. I really do. But many of us are sitting on something that's really in our heart and in our body and taking up space, and we're not taking action for a variety of reasons that we just talked about. So let's talk about your tools. Um, these are not hammers and nails. These are more what I like to say, the squishy things that can help us move forward and make progress one tiny little clunky baby step at a time. And very practically, one of my go-to tools, especially when I was thinking about starting my business, were spreadsheets. Anybody else love a spreadsheet? And maybe it's a sticky note. I also have them at the ready. Carol loves her spreadsheets. Thank you. And I created a bunch of different tabs, and I still have this spreadsheet. I track everywhere I've been on my travels. And One of the tabs is what gets in the way. So every time I would have one of those nagging, doubty feelings or thoughts that maybe I should stay in my corporate position because it was safe there, and maybe this idea of going out and trying something different, maybe not a good idea. Well, what gets in the way? What made me think that? And one of the things was health insurance. I mentioned it before. Anytime a woman reaches out to me, particularly if she's the queen of her castle, if you will, if she's the breadwinner, single like me, or is the provider of the health insurance, she always asks, well, what do you do about health insurance? And the truth is, it was my number one too. I am an insurance agent still, not on that side of the business, but I have resources. And finally, I moved that from what gets in the way to what are the speed bumps that I can overcome. And called an insurance agent. I happen to know more than one of those and said, hey, I need an individual insurance policy. How do I get it? And what's it going to cost? And all of a sudden, once I had that information, it wasn't the thing that got in the way anymore. And so the thing that gets in the way for you might be different. It might be something else tied to the financials. It might be that time. It might be what does this mean in my whole body of work, if you will. If I go to the left when everybody else is going right, what does that say about my career or my commitment? Amy is making a free time calendar. I love that. So you're not vegging in front of the TV when you could take an hour to be productive. Yeah. I love that. Part of why I love a podcast is because of that multitasking. I can be listening while I'm sorting. I can be listening while I'm doing laundry, and um, interesting. I love that. Good for you, Amy. Thanks for inspiring and sharing your tool. This is fair game, everybody. So feel free to chime in as there's things that come up for you as well. Tools also might be things like journaling. They might be meditation. They might be um, anything, anything that comes up for you that helps you to move the needle from A to B, if you will. One of the things that I can only share when I'm talking to a group of women in insurance is maybe my favorite geeky tool, and that is the principles of risk management here. I am not promising you a system to move forward in your risk taking. However, we do have this fancy little 1, 2, 3, 4 when we're talking about managing actual risk in business or in your home, if you will, that we can overlay on some of our own risk taking. So you can avoid it. You can say, never mind, I'm not going to do that thing. I'm just going to skip it altogether. You can accept it. You can say, yeah, yep, this sounds like the right thing for me. This sounds like something that I'm going to move forward with. You can transfer it. A little tricky to transfer the kinds of risks that we're talking about, but you might say, I will cheer you on while someone else goes and does this. I may give someone else financial resources in order to go do this thing. So the thing that I feel passionately about gets done. You can mitigate it. What are the things that I can do to lessen the risk? What are the choices that I can make it a little less painful? Maybe I don't quit my job tomorrow. Maybe I quit in 6 months once I've saved a little bit of money. In my case, when I made my decision, there you go, transfer the obstacles or roadblocks. I love that. When I made the decision to embrace my gray hair, I did all sorts of research, like I mentioned. Was I going to go cold turkey? Was I going to shave my head? Was I going to go pay a professional colorist to blend in the gray? And I ultimately decided to go cold turkey and just to live with the 18 months of weirdness in that in between phase. But those are all different things that we can do to mitigate the risk. And then the idea of exploiting it. What happens if it works out? What happens if it goes even better than we intended or than we planned? And so I would never say just follow these easy 5 steps and your answer will present. But I do think it's kind of fun and endearing that we have this tool as risk management professionals. And in many cases, we literally spend our days managing other people's risk. And so why would we not use some of those tools that we have to our benefit to make that process a little lighter for ourselves? The next is our inputs. So thinking about before, as we were kind of ruminating and marinating on this risk and thinking about what's getting in the way, other people's opinions. And in this case, I want to challenge us to really think about who are the people And what are the sources of input that we're having in our decision making? And are they the right ones? I have a whole separate talk that I love to give, and it's on the advice that we get as young women in our lives and our careers that doesn't necessarily stand the test of time. And usually the advice is coming from somebody who's a little bit older than we are. Maybe they've achieved something that we have our sights set on, and so therefore we assume that they know better. But maybe they don't, and maybe their goal. And I'm thinking about a parent here. A parent typically, stereotypically, has a desire to keep their kiddo safe. And so maybe, as was the case for me when I told my folks that I was going to sell all my stuff in Chicago and start traveling, their response was, "That's a terrible idea. Why would you do that? You should not be out in places you don't know, driving around and Airbnb, sleeping in other people's homes." And um, we had to do a little negotiation there, and I had to help them understand my own boundaries around safety. And the truth is, that's a choice they would never make. They would never make a choice like that for themselves. And so fundamentally, people that had already been on this journey, who already understood some of those risks and were managing them, were probably better inputs for me in that moment. I tell this story a lot, but it's important. My friendships changed when I started my own business. I had a lot of friends that were on a very traditional corporate path. And so they were measuring titles and promotions and raises and things like that. And I made a totally different decision. And so the things that I was measuring over time were very different. And the things that we had in common initially, we didn't have in common anymore. And so I needed to start surrounding myself with some new people and some new ideas. And so it is important in the season of life that you're in that you find people who can support you and uplift you and validate that the decision you're making isn't the most horrible one. Um, I love this, Jennifer. Thanks. And the last one is your body. And this is something I mentioned. I'm a lifelong, I think, navigator of anxiety, and it shows up in different ways. And understanding my own nervous system and what's going on in my body, and really asking myself this question: is this thing that I'm thinking about, is this uncomfortable for me because I've never done it before? Or is it uncomfortable for me because it's totally out of alignment with who I am? And my stress and my anxiety lives in my chest, but my knowing lives in my belly. And it's a very different feeling. We talk about your gut instinct. It's a thing. I fully believe it's a thing. And sometimes we have that deep knowing in our belly, but we've got this racing heart in our chest, and it feels like they're competing with each other. And so, can you quiet the noise? Literally. Can you find a quiet place? Can you focus on your breath? Can you help to organize those feelings that you're having and really understand where they're coming from in your body? One of the things I didn't mention under your tools, because it kind of frankly crosses over into a lot of things, is if you have the ability, the means, the resources to work with a therapist or someone who can kind of guide you through some of these exercises, it can be really helpful. And fortunately, we're seeing the stigma around mental health support changing, and I love that. But also knowing that you can engage with a professional for just a minute. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. If you're struggling with something kind of big and heavy, you don't have to navigate that journey um, alone. So, anybody have any thoughts? I'm kind of rolling through our material here. Yeah. Yeah, Maureen validated over in the questions fear of not being accepted when working with the younger generation. Yeah, that's a thing. Elaine, how are we doing? Are you seeing anything on your end that I need to chat
I'm
through?
not,
Okay.
but I was just going to put this out there to the crowd because I know several of you in this list, and this is a webinar about taking risks. So maybe some of you would like to take a risk and just get unmuted and share some thoughts. No pressure, but we're women and we tend to not have issues chatting. That's how I look at it. and
Oh,
and being open. So if anybody does want to um, insert any thoughts or comments, as Meg has indicated, just raise your hand and I will unmute you.
Thank you, Elaine. And I think some of y'all are sending your chats to me and to the IAMB folks. And if you want everybody to see them, just change that little blue drop down to everyone because they're really great. Oh, there is no everyone option. Okay, well I'll keep sharing out. Thanks for letting me know about that. Sherry, oh, you're very relatable. Thank you for helping me see that I'm not alone. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. And I'm in it with you. I have more questions than I have answers these days, and I'm trying to figure out, even though I talk about a topic like taking, I am in no way the expert. So Jennifer's talking about being a cheerleader for others. Yeah, it's important as having is as important as having a cheerleader in your corner. Yeah, I love that. All right. I want to share this quote with you. This is my dear friend, Dr. Michelle Morkert. She's been a guest on my podcast a couple years ago, and she's a confidence coach for trailblazing women, is her tagline. And she said this on the podcast, trailblazers have learned to develop enough self-trust, just enough to take courageous action before they felt confident. We think it's the other way around, that we're going to feel confident and then we're going to take courageous action. And Dr. Michelle reminds me in this quote that in many ways, risk taking and building courage, it's a muscle and it develops over time. And I do believe that the more we do it, I won't say the easier it becomes, but the more confident we become in our own ability to do it. And when I think about just recalling some of those milestone moments for me, the end of my marriage was a really significant reestablishing for me at 30 who I'm going to be as a woman. And I didn't know then that I would eventually leave corporate America and start my own business. And I didn't know then that I would sell my home and start to travel. And the gray hair is just kind of a fun aside, but I don't know that I could have made those choices had I not made the ones that came before. And so while risk taking can feel very heavy, it also shows a great amount of possibility. And I love that sort of optimistic lens on risk taking. Um, I mentioned one of the beautiful upsides for risk taking for me, and one of the hardest parts about traveling full time has been a sense of community. It's hard for me to find a sense of community. And a couple years ago, I was in Montana for the summer, and I was talking to my therapist, who's just wonderful. And I said, I'm never going to meet anyone who's ever going to want to be with somebody like me. I'm a flight risk. I always have one foot out the door, and I'm everywhere I am on a very temporary basis. And he said, he's so funny. He said, well, with that attitude, of course you're not going to meet anybody. And so, yeah, okay. But I went on Tinder and I created a profile, and I outlined just exactly what I was looking for, and I got it. And I don't know what the future holds, but I know that had I not taken the risk to start traveling, and I had not taken the risk to spread out for the summer in Montana and to open up to my therapist and to put myself on Tinder, that I wouldn't be in the relationship that I'm in right now. And so risk feels heavy. It has a lot of weight in our lives, but sometimes the biggest risk is putting yourself on a dating app, opening up a new cookbook, taking a different route to school pickup with your kiddos. It's saying hi to somebody at the coffee shop. It's standing in your boss's door asking them if they're okay. There's a lot of different risks that we're taking every day in and out. So this is great. I'm going to catch up with y'all in the chat here, and this is it. This is all that I have for you. We have just about a minute left, but I love all this sharing. Kate, body, Danielle, spot on about the body. Yeah, nice to reflect on risk more at a personal level. I agree. Hard to leave, but yeah, it was time to go. Hard to make a leap. It's hard. This stuff is hard. Yeah, and you're happy on the other side. I love it. And it's a different happiness, right? Happiness changes, I think, as we do. This is great. All right, I'm going to turn it over oh, quick last thought. That's my LinkedIn profile if anybody wants to connect with me there. And Elaine, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Terrific. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And really, the number of folks that stuck around was great. Meg, you did a great job with the presentation. Remember, the webinar recording will be available to you via your association's website. And if you enjoyed today's presentation and want to attend our upcoming webinars, all scheduled for noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the list of those is in front of you. And you can also check back with your association, as I'm sure they'll be promoting and providing you with that info. And to all of you out in the audience that are coming to the conference at the end of March, it is coming fast and furiously, and we cannot wait to see all of you in person. So thank you very much, Meg, and everybody enjoy your afternoon. Stay warm, please. It's cold out there. So, oh, someone is asking, what is the conference at the end of March? Oh, Amy, unfortunately, it's sold out, but you can register for the wait list, and it is IAMB's Women's Conference, and we focus on women's issues and things that our members are wanting to tackle. And we're going to be having Meg as our keynote speaker, and she'll be talking about a little bit about the hard market and dealing a little bit with burnout and just being resilient. Is that about right, Meg?
You got it, Elaine.
There
Yes.
you go.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I
yeah.
can't wait. And I realized my closing there was a little clunky, but so many thanks to everybody for participating and chiming in the chat and being part of this discussion and letting me do what I do. I just love this stuff and I can't wait to see so many of you next month.
Yeah, we can't wait. So, all right, ladies, thank you so much. I can just, how do I want to stop?